Don't skip now, my beloved child, because what is about to unfold reaches deeper than anything your soulmate has experienced before. There are moments when heaven seems silent, when every prayer feels as though it disappears into the night without an answer, and when every step forward feels uncertain. But what most people never realize is that silence does not always mean nothing is happening. Sometimes silence is where the greatest miracles begin. Sometimes while your heart believes it has been forgotten, life is quietly rearranging everything behind the scenes. Every delay has a purpose. Every closed door carries protection that cannot yet be understood. Every unexpected ending creates room for a beginning far greater than the one you were trying so desperately to hold on to. Stay till the very end, because what your soulmate is about to discover will completely transform the way they understand every painful chapter they have ever lived through. For so long, your soulmate carried invisible burdens that no one else could truly see. The people around them saw someone who continued showing up every day. They saw someone who smiled politely, fulfilled responsibilities, and somehow kept moving despite everything life had placed upon their shoulders. But very few people knew how much strength it took just to appear okay. They never witnessed the nights when exhaustion wasn't physical but emotional. They never saw the quiet tears that came without warning. They never heard the conversations your soulmate replayed over and over inside their own mind, wondering whether one different decision could have changed everything. Those silent battles shaped them in ways no one could fully understand. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. There is a difference between surviving pain and allowing pain to define who you become. At first, your soulmate believed they would never escape the emotional weight they carried. Every memory felt fresh. Every reminder reopened wounds that had barely begun to heal. They questioned their own judgment. They questioned their own heart. They questioned whether they would ever trust again. But healing has a remarkable way of arriving quietly. It does not knock loudly at the door. Instead, it enters through tiny moments that almost seem too ordinary to notice. One peaceful morning. One genuine laugh. One evening where sleep finally comes without overthinking the past. Those moments appear insignificant at first, but together they slowly rebuild a life. Meanwhile, another story may have been unfolding in a completely different direction. Someone who once believed they understood everything may have begun discovering how little they actually knew. Time has a way of revealing truths that emotions once concealed. Decisions that once seemed easy begin carrying unexpected consequences. Choices that once felt justified begin creating questions that refuse to disappear. It isn't always dramatic. It isn't always visible to the outside world. Sometimes the deepest consequences happen entirely within the heart. Sometimes the loudest regrets are the ones no one else ever hears. Stay with me, because the next chapter carries a truth that very few people ever understand. Imagine spending months believing that losing someone made you weaker, only to realize one day that it actually made you wiser. Imagine recognizing that every disappointment forced you to discover strength you never would have found otherwise. Your soulmate may not have chosen the road they walked, but they have become someone extraordinary because they refuse to stop walking. That resilience is becoming one of the greatest blessings hidden inside their story. There was once a version of your soulmate who constantly searched for explanations. They wanted every question answered. They wanted every misunderstanding corrected. They wanted every painful ending to somehow make sense. But life does not always provide immediate explanations. Sometimes understanding arrives years later. Sometimes clarity only becomes visible after enough distance has been created between who you were and who you have become. Looking back, your soulmate may eventually realize that many of the things they once begged life to restore would have prevented them from receiving something infinitely healthier. Don't skip, because this next realization may stay with you forever. There comes a moment when a heart finally becomes tired of carrying burdens that no longer belong to it. Not because those burdens suddenly become lighter, but because the soul quietly decides it deserves peace more than endless emotional struggle. Your soulmate reached that moment gradually. They stopped checking whether someone else had changed. They stopped hoping another person's choices would suddenly erase years of disappointment. Instead, they began changing themselves. They built stronger boundaries. They learned to listen to their own intuition. They began trusting the quiet voice inside them that had always been trying to protect them. My beloved child, this is where the story begins taking a direction no one expected. Once your soulmate stopped chasing what continually ran away from them, life slowly began bringing different opportunities into view. New conversations felt easier. New friendships felt safer. Even ordinary days carried a peace that had been missing for far too long. It wasn't because life had suddenly become perfect. It was because their relationship with themselves had changed. They no longer believed they had to earn love by sacrificing their own happiness. They no longer believed constant emotional confusion was proof of a meaningful connection. They finally understood that peace is not boring. Peace is precious. Listen carefully, because another beautiful truth is unfolding. The strongest people are rarely those who never cry. The strongest people are the ones who continue loving without allowing disappointment to turn them into someone they were never meant to become. Your soulmate could have chosen bitterness. They had every reason to become cynical. They had every opportunity to stop believing in genuine connection altogether. Yet somehow, despite everything they experienced, a small part of their heart refused to stop hoping. That quiet hope became the light that guided them through every difficult season. Meanwhile, someone connected to their past may have begun noticing changes they never expected. The version of your soulmate they remembered no longer existed. The person who once waited patiently for attention had disappeared. The one who once accepted inconsistent effort without question had quietly transformed. In their place stood someone calmer, wiser, and emotionally stronger. Someone who had learned that genuine love never asks you to constantly prove your worth. Someone who had finally realized that walking away from emotional confusion is sometimes the greatest act of self-respect a person can choose. Stay till the end, because what happens next may become the greatest turning point of all. Life often waits until someone truly values their own peace before introducing relationships capable of protecting it. That timing can feel frustrating while you're waiting, but looking back, it almost always makes sense. Your soulmate has spent so much time becoming the kind of person they once prayed to meet that they may not even realize how much they have changed. Their heart no longer seeks excitement built on uncertainty. Instead, it quietly longs for consistency, honesty, kindness, and emotional safety. Those desires are not signs of weakness. They are signs of wisdom earned through experience. Don't skip this next moment, my beloved child, because something extraordinary is already beginning to move. The next season of your soulmate's life will not ask them to become someone else in order to be loved. It will invite them to become even more fully themselves. Every painful lesson has been preparing them for that invitation. Every tear has watered the ground beneath a future that is stronger than anything they could have imagined during their darkest nights. And although they cannot yet see the entire road ahead, each new sunrise quietly brings them closer to a chapter where peace no longer feels temporary, where trust no longer feels impossible, and where love is no longer something that must be chased. It simply arrives, stays, and grows. Don't leave now, my beloved child, because the pages you are about to hear reveal the moment where everything begins to change from the inside out. Most people believe transformation happens all at once, through one dramatic event or one unforgettable conversation. But the deepest transformations rarely announce themselves. They arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary mornings, unexpected moments of peace, and small decisions that seem almost insignificant at first. Stay till the very end because your soulmate is walking toward a realization that will forever separate who they used to be from who they are becoming. This is the chapter where the old story finally begins to lose its power. There came a day when your soulmate stopped searching for signs in every little thing. They no longer measured their happiness by whether someone reached out, whether a message arrived, or whether the past finally decided to explain itself. Instead, they began paying attention to something they had ignored for far too long, the quiet voice inside their own heart. That voice had always been there. It had whispered warnings they once overlooked. It had offered comfort during lonely nights. It had reminded them that they deserved honesty even when their emotions tempted them to settle for uncertainty. Now, for the first time, they were finally listening. Listen carefully because this changes everything. Your soulmate may not have realized that every difficult season had been preparing them for this exact moment. Every disappointment taught discernment. Every betrayal strengthened wisdom. Every goodbye became another lesson in self-respect. Looking back, they would one day understand that life was never punishing them. It was protecting them from becoming permanently attached to situations that could never offer lasting peace. The answers they spent years searching for were quietly being written through their own growth. Sometimes the greatest explanation is the person you become after surviving what you thought would break you. Meanwhile, another heart may have begun wrestling with questions that refuse to remain silent. There are moments when memories return unexpectedly, not to reopen old wounds, but to reveal lessons that were ignored the first time. Familiar places suddenly feel different. Familiar songs carry emotions that were never fully acknowledged. Small acts of kindness that once seemed ordinary become impossible to forget. Time has a remarkable way of changing perspective. What once appeared replaceable now feels incredibly rare. What once seemed guaranteed now becomes deeply missed. Life often teaches the value of sincerity only after someone has experienced the emptiness that comes from taking it for granted. My beloved child, don't skip because another beautiful truth is waiting for you. Your soulmate has unknowingly become the answer to prayers they once whispered through tears. They prayed for strength, and life gave them challenges that revealed how strong they truly were. They prayed for wisdom, and life answered through experiences they never would have chosen but desperately needed. They prayed for peace, and little by little, peace began replacing the chaos they once mistook for love. The journey was painful, but every step carried purpose, even when they could not see it. Stay with me because what happened next surprised even your soulmate. One afternoon, while simply living their life, they noticed something extraordinary. They laughed without forcing it. They made plans without fear. They dreamed about the future instead of constantly replaying the past. It was such a simple moment that anyone watching from the outside might have missed its importance. But inside, everything had changed. The heart that once believed it would never fully heal had quietly proven itself wrong. Healing had not arrived all at once. It had arrived through hundreds of tiny victories that eventually became impossible to ignore. Listen carefully because the next realization may become one of the most powerful lessons of this entire story. There is an enormous difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is believing something essential is missing. Solitude is discovering that your own company can become a place of comfort, restoration, and clarity. Your soulmate has slowly learned how to enjoy moments they once feared. They no longer feel the need to fill every silence. They no longer rush into situations simply to avoid being alone. Instead, they have begun appreciating the peace that comes from knowing exactly who they are, even when no one else is watching. At the same time, life continued opening doors they never expected. New opportunities appeared with surprising ease. Conversations with kind-hearted people became more frequent. They began noticing individuals who communicated with honesty instead of confusion, who showed consistency instead of unpredictability, and who respected boundaries instead of challenging them. These encounters reminded your soulmate that healthy relationships do exist. They are quieter than emotional chaos, but they are infinitely stronger. For someone who had grown accustomed to uncertainty, that realization felt almost unbelievable. Don't leave because another turning point is approaching. Imagine planting a garden after years of believing nothing beautiful could ever grow again. At first, progress seems invisible. Then one day, tiny signs of life begin appearing through the soil. Your soulmate's heart has become that garden. Every act of self-respect planted another seed. Every difficult boundary strengthened the roots beneath the surface. Every choice to walk away from emotional confusion watered the future they were slowly creating. Now those seeds are beginning to bloom in ways they never imagined possible. My beloved child, there is something many people never understand until much later in life. The greatest revenge is not proving someone wrong. The greatest victory is creating a life so full of peace that the need for revenge quietly disappears. Your soulmate is moving closer to that freedom every single day. They no longer wake up wondering who failed to appreciate them. They wake up grateful for another opportunity to appreciate themselves. That shift changes everything. It changes the way they speak, the way they love, the way they trust, and the way they choose the people allowed into their inner world. Listen carefully because something remarkable is unfolding behind the scenes. Your soulmate's future is no longer being built upon fear. It is being built upon intention. They are becoming more selective about where they invest their time, their energy, and their emotions. They understand now that not every connection deserves unlimited access to their heart. Trust is no longer given automatically. It is earned through consistency, honesty, and respect. This new wisdom does not make them cold. It makes them emotionally healthy. It allows them to remain kind without becoming vulnerable to the same painful patterns that once kept them trapped. Stay till the end because this next chapter carries hope unlike anything that came before it. Somewhere ahead, perhaps much closer than your soulmate realizes, waits an encounter that feels refreshingly different. It may begin with an ordinary conversation, a shared laugh, or a moment so simple it almost goes unnoticed. Yet beneath that simplicity is something powerful, a connection built not upon confusion, but upon mutual understanding. For the first time in a very long while, your soulmate may discover what it feels like to relax instead of overthink, to trust instead of constantly question, to receive kindness without wondering when it will disappear. That experience will remind them that love does not have to be exhausting to be meaningful. Don't skip this final moment, my beloved child, because the greatest lesson has been hiding in plain sight all along. Your soulmate once believed that healing meant becoming the person they were before the heartbreak. But now they understand something far more beautiful. They were never meant to return to who they used to be. They were meant to become someone even stronger, even wiser, and even more deeply connected to their own worth. Every painful chapter became a teacher. Every setback became preparation. Every tear quietly watered the future that is now beginning to bloom. And as another sunrise approaches, your soulmate stands closer than ever to a life they once believed existed only in dreams. A life where peace replaces confusion. A life where trust replaces fear. A life where love is not something that must constantly be earned through sacrifice, but something freely shared between two hearts willing to choose one another every single day. They cannot yet see every detail of the road ahead, but they no longer need to. Faith has quietly replaced fear. Hope has gently replaced doubt. And with every step they take, they move further away from the shadows of yesterday and closer to the extraordinary future that has been patiently waiting for them all along. The story, my beloved child, is far from over. In fact, it is only now revealing its most beautiful pages. Don't leave now, my beloved child, because the chapter you are about to hear carries a truth that many people spend years searching for without ever fully understanding. There comes a moment when the heart grows tired, not tired of loving, but tired of carrying burdens that were never meant to belong to it. For so long, your soulmate carried questions that had no answers, hopes that belonged to another season, and expectations that kept them looking backward instead of forward. Yet somewhere between the sleepless nights and the quiet mornings, something extraordinary began to happen. They stopped asking life to return what had already ended, and they started preparing themselves for what had not yet arrived. Stay till the very end, because this changes everything in ways that no one could have predicted. There may have been a quiet evening when your soulmate looked out at the world and realized that it no longer felt the same. The places that once reminded them of sadness had slowly become just places again. The songs that once carried painful memories had become nothing more than melodies drifting through the air. Even the silence had changed. It no longer echoed with loneliness. Instead, it offered peace. That peaceful silence became one of the greatest gifts they had ever received because, for the first time in a very long while, they discovered that happiness does not always arrive through dramatic moments. Sometimes it arrives gently, one quiet breath at a time. Listen carefully, my beloved child, because the strongest hearts are not the ones that never break. The strongest hearts are the ones that continue believing in kindness after disappointment, continue choosing compassion after betrayal, and continue hoping even when hope once seemed impossible. Your soulmate has become one of those hearts. Every difficult chapter refined them instead of destroying them. Every setback strengthened qualities they never knew they possessed. Patience became deeper. Wisdom became clearer. Their understanding of love became healthier than it had ever been before. That transformation could never have happened without every lesson they once wished they could avoid. Meanwhile, somewhere beyond your soulmate's awareness, life continued.